Imagine this. The scene is a silent, brightly lit room in Seoul, March 2016. A man, Lee Sedol, the world's top Go player for the past decade, sits alone at a board. Across from him, there is no one. His opponent is a silent, invisible presence, an algorithm breathing through the hum of a server farm miles away. The score is 0-3. He, the human champion, has been crushed in 3 consecutive games. The media has already drafted the headlines. Humanity's last stand ends in defeat. He carries on his shoulders not just the weight of the game, but what feels like the final dignity of human intuition in the face of cold, calculating logic. The air in the room is so thick with tension, you could almost see it. For hours, the game has been a brutal, one-sided affair. The machine, AlphaGo, plays with a terrifying perfection, its moves logical, efficient, and utterly suffocating. Lee Sedol looks tired, his face etched with the strain of battling a perfect storm of probability. Then, at the 78th move, he picks up a single white stone. The world watches. He could place it in a number of logical spots, places the machine has already calculated and deemed acceptable, but he doesn't. He extends his arm and places the stone in the vast, empty space of the center board, a move so unexpected, so quiet, it felt like a whisper in a hurricane. In that instant, something incredible happens. The commentators fall silent, unsure what to say. Top professional players watching online type streams of question marks. It was a move that, by all conventional wisdom, seemed wrong. It was inefficient. It was subtle. It was beautiful. And then the real magic began. AlphaGo's own internal evaluation, displayed on a side screen for the world to see, began to plummet. Its sophisticated algorithmic brain, which had processed millions of games, fell into an unprecedented chaos. It simply could not comprehend the meaning of this move. It was as if a master logician had been presented with a perfect poem. Its tools of analysis were useless. This single, quiet move, born from a flash of human insight, would later be known by one name: the divine move. What just happened there? What was going on inside Lee Sedol's brain at that precise moment? We know for a fact it wasn't just raw calculation. If it were, the machine, the greatest calculator ever created, would have seen it coming. So, what was it? A feeling? An artistic impulse? A sudden holistic vision of the entire board? And how is that state of mind fundamentally different from what a chess grandmaster, like Magnus Carlsen, experiences when he executes a flawless, 10-move tactical combination to trap his opponent's king? Why was this ancient game of Go, with its simple black and white stones, the last and most difficult fortress for artificial intelligence to conquer? The story of what happened in that room, and more importantly, inside Lee Sedol's mind, is a fascinating detective story into the very nature of human thought. If you love deep dives like this, a journey to the core of what makes us human, creating them takes a ton of research and effort. So a quick like and a subscription would be incredible. It truly helps us keep exploring these big questions. Alright, so to understand Lee Sedol's divine move, we first need to step back and enter the 2 very different worlds these games create. We need to understand the fundamental philosophy baked into the very rules of chess and Go, because it's these rules that force the human brain to evolve in 2 completely different directions. Alright then, to truly understand Lee Sedol's divine move, we first need to take a step back and enter the 2 completely different worlds that these games create. We need to understand the underlying philosophy baked into the very rules of chess and Go, because it's these rules that force the human brain to evolve in 2 completely different directions. First, let's step into the world of chess. Imagine a classic Western grandmaster. We'll call him Alex. Alex is renowned for his ruthless tactical style. When he sits down at the 64-square board, he doesn't see a piece of wood, he sees a brutal medieval battlefield rendered in black and white. In his eyes, the pieces are not equal. They are an army with a rigid hierarchy. The king is the vulnerable yet priceless heart of the operation. If captured, the entire empire collapses instantly. The queen is the apex predator of the battlefield, an all-powerful assassin with unmatched mobility. The rooks, knights, and bishops are special forces, each with unique functions. And the pawns are the very soul of chess brave foot soldiers, ready to be sacrificed at any moment for a greater strategic victory. Alex's entire thought process revolves around a single, absolute, and violent objective: to checkmate the enemy king. This isn't about management, it's about assassination. His mind becomes a cold, silent calculator, building decision trees of if-then scenarios in a labyrinth of deep possibilities. He's searching for logical certainty, for an undeniable tactical combination that will lock the enemy king in a fatal trap. The thrill he experiences is the intellectual pleasure of cornering his prey, the clarity of finding the one correct answer in a storm of chaos. Alex's world is a focused, zero-sum war of logic, fought with calculation as its weapon. Now, let's take a deep breath, leave Alex's smoke-filled battlefield, and travel east, to the quiet, minimalist world of the Go master, Mr. Lin. When Mr. Lin gazes at the 19 by 19 grid, he doesn't see a battlefield or an army. He sees a vast, empty canvas waiting to be painted, or perhaps a starless night sky waiting for constellations to be born. To him, the 361 intersections are 361 points of budding potential. In his hands, the black and white stones have no rank. They are not kings or soldiers. They are identical. They are seeds. They are pioneers. Their value is not intrinsic. It is defined entirely by the relationships they form with the other stones around them. Therefore, Mr. Lin's thought process is not linear. He isn't searching for a killer move. His thinking is divergent. It is based on feeling. His fingers hover over the board, not searching for the best place to capture an enemy stone, but sensing the right place, the point that allows this single stone to resonate with its partners, time, to radiate the most influence. What he seeks is not a singular victory, but a subtle balance, finding the most harmonious point between solidifying his territory and developing his outward influence. Mr. Lin's world is not a war, but an art form. An art of creation, balance, and influence. So you see, these two games are, at their root, two completely different kinds of mental training. Alex is trained to be a hunter, a tactician, his brain repeatedly polished to execute precise, focused calculations. Mr. Lin, on the other hand, is trained to be a farmer, a strategist, his brain repeatedly molded to engage in open, holistic perception. This raises a fascinating question. If you put both Alex and Mr. Lin into a brain scanner while they were thinking, would their brains actually look different? Are these just philosophical metaphors, or have their minds been physically rewired by their chosen craft? Well, scientists were just as curious as we are, and what they found is absolutely stunning. Scientists were just as curious as we are, and what they found will absolutely blow your mind. But before we look at the brain scans themselves, let's first take a journey with our imagination, a deeper dive into the mind's eye, to personally experience the theatre of the mind that plays out for each of these masters. First, picture Alex. He's in the middle of a complex game. His opponent, an equally formidable Grandmaster, has just moved a knight to a strange-looking square. Is it a novice's blunder, or is it the beginning of a deep, elaborate trap? In that fraction of a second, the social and emotional parts of Alex's brain go quiet. A different machine whirs to life, his internal, silent supercomputer. His thinking doesn't move forward in a straight line. No, his mind explodes into a massive, ever-branching tree of possibilities. If I take the knight, one of the main branches begins, then his rook will check my king, forcing me to block with my bishop. And then that branch splits again, and again, and again, extending into dozens, even hundreds, of potential futures. To navigate this mental labyrinth, he must rely on one of the most powerful and energy-hungry tools of the human brain, his working memory. You can think of it as his mind's high-speed RAM, or a temporary virtual whiteboard. On this whiteboard, he must hold, manipulate, and evaluate multiple, complex game states simultaneously, stretching 7, 8, even 10 moves deep. The sheer cognitive load is immense. It's a high-wire act of pure, focused concentration, where one miscalculation in any of the branches can cause the entire logical structure to collapse. He is a deep-sea diver of logic, plunging into one narrow, dark trench of possibilities, determined to reach the very bottom and find the single glittering pearl of a winning move. His thinking is depth first, profoundly deep, but narrow. Now, let's leave Alex in his suffocating trench of calculation, surface for air, and glide into the wide open ocean of Mr. Lin's consciousness. Mr. Lin is also in the middle of a game, but his board is a sprawling, seemingly chaotic landscape. There is no king to hunt, no single problem to solve. Dozens of small skirmishes are unfolding simultaneously in the corners and the center, a web of potential territories and intersecting lines of influence. When he gazes upon this chaos, his first instinct is not to calculate, it is to recognize. His brain is not a calculator, it's a vast, interconnected library of tens of thousands of Go patterns. He no longer sees 200 individual stones. His expert mind automatically chunks them together into familiar shapes and constellations. It's like a Grandmaster musician who doesn't hear 3 separate notes, C, E, and G, but one single harmonious entity, a C major chord. And it is from this massive library of chunks that a feeling emerges, a gut instinct, what psychologists call a heuristic. This shape feels solid, his mind whispers. That group of stones has potential, but it's a little thin. This isn't a calculation, it is a profound, almost aesthetic sense of balance, cultivated over countless hours of experience. He is like a satellite orbiting high above a continent, observing the entire landscape at once. He's sensing the weather patterns, the shifting political borders, the overall flow of power. His thinking is breadth first, vast and encompassing the whole board, even if it doesn't dive as deeply into any single variation. So, now we have 2 masters, 2 minds. One is Alex, the surgeon, performing a deep, precise operation on a single point. The other is Mr. Lin, the artist, painting a massive, harmonious mural on a giant canvas. One is a problem-solving machine, searching for the correct answer. The other is a pattern-matching engine, searching for the best feel. This description of their inner worlds, the surgeon's scalpel versus the artist's brush, is a powerful metaphor. But is it just a metaphor? Is it possible to actually see these different thought processes light up in their brains in real time? The answer is yes, and this is where our story officially crosses the border, from the realm of philosophical speculation into the hard evidence of biology. This description of their inner worlds, the surgeon's scalpel versus the artist's brush, is a powerful metaphor. But is it just a metaphor? Is it possible to actually see these different thought processes light up in their brains in real time? The answer is yes, and this is where our story officially crosses the border from the realm of philosophical speculation into the hard evidence of biology. Now, imagine we're walking into a state-of-the-art cognitive neuroscience lab. Picture sliding a Grandmaster like Alex into the noisy, claustrophobic tube of an fMRI machine. It sounds complicated, but the principle is actually quite simple. The machine is essentially a super-sensitive tracker of blood flow in the brain. Whichever part of the brain is working hardest needs the most oxygenated blood. The fMRI creates a real-time map of the brain's energy consumption by tracking that blood flow. So, wherever the map lights up, that's where the brain is firing on all cylinders. All right, the experiment begins. The scientists flash a complex chess endgame problem onto a screen inside the machine. Almost instantly, on the monitors in the lab, a specific region of Alex's brain flares up like a supernova. It's a hotspot in his left hemisphere. This is the brain's headquarters for logic, its central processing unit for symbolic processing and linear calculation. The brain scan is a perfect biological photograph of our metaphor, a focused, powerful, localized burst of energy. It is the neural signature of a logical sniper. Okay, the researchers in the lab nod. This all makes sense, perfectly confirming their theories. But now, for the main event, they bring in a Go master like Mr. Lin. Same process, same machine. A complex life and death Go problem appears on the screen. Everyone in the lab holds their breath, expecting, well, maybe a slightly different version of the same thing. But what appears on the monitor is something else entirely. What lights up is not an isolated hotspot, but a glittering constellation. Activity is spread across various regions, but the most dramatic activation is on the right side of the brain. The right hemisphere, the area responsible for spatial awareness, holistic imagery, and intuitive insight, is buzzing with stunning intensity. It's a beautiful, balanced picture of the whole brain being brought online. So, the brain scans provide us with the irrefutable evidence. Our metaphors were not just poetic license. Alex's brain truly was operating like a serial processor, a logical surgeon. And Mr. Lin's brain was acting more like a parallel processor, a holistic artist embracing the entire canvas. What's even more fascinating is that research has revealed another secret. For players of either game, the higher their level of expertise, the quieter the activity in their raw calculation centers becomes. Why? Because true masters are no longer using brute force to calculate from scratch. They are doing what we discussed earlier, instantly accessing and using chunks from their vast mental library of patterns. True mastery, it turns out, is not about thinking harder, it's about seeing smarter. Okay, so we now know their brains are wired differently, and they function differently. This leads to the next, and perhaps the most personal, question. Do these different ways of thinking also shape them into different kinds of people? If you spend tens of thousands of hours training your brain to become either a logical sniper or a holistic artist, does that affect your personality and decision-making off the board? Let's talk about it. Okay, so we now know their brains are wired differently, and they function differently. This leads us to the next, and perhaps the most personal, question of all. Do these different ways of thinking also shape them into different kinds of people? If you spend tens of thousands of hours training your brain to become either a logical sniper or a holistic artist, does that affect your personality and decision-making off the board? Now, before we dive in, we have to be clear. Personality is an incredibly complex topic, shaped by our genes, our upbringing, and our life experiences. We are definitely not saying that the game you play determines the person you become. But, as a fascinating thought experiment, let's explore how tens of thousands of hours devoted to one extreme form of mental training might sculpt one's tendencies and instincts. To make this thought experiment concrete, let's imagine a scenario. Our two protagonists, Alex and Mr. Lin, are no longer just players. They are both CEOs of successful companies. And on the same Monday morning, they both receive the same shocking news. A rival corporation has launched an aggressive, hostile takeover bid. What is Alex's first reaction? His chess-trained brain immediately frames this business challenge as a zero-sum game. It's a war. He becomes decisive, determined, even aggressive. He calls an emergency board meeting, and just like analysing an endgame, he calmly analyzes his opponent's financial weaknesses and tactical intentions, and plots a precise, sharp counterattack. Perhaps it's a poison pill strategy or a direct assault on the rival's weak points. He is comfortable with the conflict because, in his mind, that's part of the game. His goal is clear and quantifiable: defeat the opponent and win. Now, let's look at Mr. Lin. He receives the exact same news. How does his Go-trained mind react? He doesn't see this as a single battle that must be won or lost immediately. He sees it as a dramatic imbalance that has occurred in the larger business ecosystem. His first instinct isn't to attack, but to look inward. He remains calm, comfortable with the initial uncertainty. Instead of a direct counterattack, he might focus on making his own territory stronger and more stable. His solution would likely be more long-term. Maybe he'd use this crisis as an opportunity to accelerate the launch of a game-changing new product, rally his employees to build a stronger corporate culture, or seek out new strategic alliances to alter the entire landscape of the game. He isn't trying to kill the opponent. He's trying to make his own empire so strong that the attack becomes irrelevant. This story illustrates two fascinating personality archetypes. In Alex, we see a glimpse of the logical warrior. They are drawn to clarity, structure, and decisive outcomes. They can excel in fields that demand precise, analytical, problem-solving think surgeons, programmers, or trial lawyers. But they might feel frustrated and uncomfortable when dealing with ambiguous, emotionally complex grey areas that have no single right answer. And in Mr. Lin, we see the holistic strategist. They are resilient, patient, and comfortable with uncertainty. They excel in fields that require long-term vision and navigating complexity like diplomacy, long-term value investing, or corporate grand strategy. They thrive in chaos, but may sometimes seem hesitant in moments that demand a quick, black or white decision. So, we have the logical warrior and the holistic strategist. Two powerful models of the mind, forged in the crucible of two ancient games. Our journey, which began with Lee Sedol's divine move, took us deep into the wiring of the brain and has now surfaced in the realm of personality. And this entire expedition brings us to one final and most profound conclusion. What is the ultimate lesson that these games, and now their AI descendants, have to teach us? What is the ultimate course they can offer about our own minds and our place in this world? Let's bring our long exploration to a close. Good night, and may you have a sweet dream, my dear friends.